హలో అండ్ వెల్కమ్ టు ఏషియానెట్ సంవాద్ సిరీస్. ఈ సిరీస్లో మనం దేశంలో విదేశాల్లో జరుగుతున్న అనేక విషయాల గురించి మనకు ఒక లోతైన విశ్లేషణను అందించే ప్రముఖులను కలవబోతున్నాము. మనతో పాటు ఏషియానెట్ న్యూస్ బిజినెస్ ఎడిటర్ అభిలాష్ నాయర్ కూడా జాయిన్ అవుతున్నారు. ఈ రోజు గెస్ట్ దేశంలోనే అత్యంత పాపులర్ జాబ్ పోర్టల్ Naukri.com సహా శిక్ష 99acres.com వంటి సైట్స్ని కలిగి ఉన్న ఇన్ఫో ఎడ్జ్ ఫౌండర్ సంజీవ్ బిఖ్చందాని 2 సంవత్సరాల కరోనా కాలం తర్వాత ఉద్యోగ మార్కెట్ ఎలా తేరుకుంది అనే విషయాన్ని మనకి వివరిస్తారు.
Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, welcome to Asianet News Samvad.
Thank you for inviting me here. It's a pleasure.
Let us begin this with the Agnipath initiative of the central government. You have welcomed this initiative in various tweets. How do you see this program bringing in a positive mindset among the job seekers?
So this initiative, actually, I'm not the expert on whether it's a good initiative or not, because it's really the army who will decide its own manpower planning and its own requirements. But the limited statement that I made on Twitter, I put out maybe 8 or 10 tweets, that in my opinion, the 75% who don't stay on in the army long term, they will have likely to have good employment prospects in the private sector, and not just in BSF and CRPF and CISF and state police forces, but also in the private sector, and not just in the security departments of companies, because these are young people, 21, 22, 23 when they finish 4 years. So therefore, they've got the foundation of commitment, focus, discipline, a good work ethic, teamwork. On that foundation, they can get into jobs across a broad spectrum of areas and functions and build specific skills there. Now, naturally, a technical job such as software programming may not be open to them, but other general jobs, sales, customer service, operations, logistics, they will all be open.
But will private companies prefer hiring the skilled and disciplined Agniveers in future? Because some companies, I know, like the Mahindra have welcomed this initiative, but will more companies prefer these Agniveers?
Look, people are hiring fresh college graduates and young people anyway. Now, same age, he has a graduate with 4 years experience in the army, and he's just a graduate. I mean, the person with 4 years experience will have an advantage in my view.
So in which all fields they will be preferred?
And several industries, several departments, like I said, marketing, sales, customer service, operations, logistics, back office, all sorts of areas.
Okay, Mr. Bikhchandani, this is Abhilash from Cochin. Will this Agniveers education qualification be a negative for them to find a foothold in the private segment? Basically, most of them will be undergraduates.
Well, they would have completed a college graduation, right? There is a IGNU tie-up that's happening. To my mind, that will be on par with very many other undergraduate colleges in India, those degrees. Of course, there are the IITs and the IIMs and the top-end colleges. They may not compare with those, but I think a large number of the main colleges would be roughly of the same caliber.
So, what's your take on center's promise of providing 10 lakh new jobs? Which are the sectors that you would benefit? That would benefit.
So, I don't know much about the center's program to provide 10 lakh new jobs, but I do see our business is booming. In Naukri, we are seeing massive demand for qualified people, for experienced people. As a consequence, Naukri is growing very fast, and we are seeing this for the last 2 or 3 quarters. So, according to us, organized corporate sector is booming. There may be sectors in the economy that are not doing so well, but we don't see them. The sectors we are in touch with, all of them are booming.
So you are indicating that the private sector is booming than the government sector, even though there are 10 lakh jobs coming up.
No, I don't know much about the government sector because typically we don't work with them, right? But we do know the private sector is booming.
So how do you see these mergers of various banks? What impact it will make in the job market?
It remains to be seen. I don't imagine there will be large-scale downsizing, right? I don't think government will be comfortable with that. So if you're merging 2 public sector banks, I would imagine it will be, as far as employment is concerned, it will be business as usual.
Okay. So it may not have huge impact in the public sector jobs.
It may not be unless there is a actual program of expansion and hiring. I don't see a downsizing happening.
How is the central government's focus on Skill India help the job market? Because there were a lot of talks about the Skill India program. Are these people coming out and getting jobs in the private sector?
So I think in the first avatar of the skilling initiative, I think there were several areas of improvement which needed to be there. See, it's very hard to have a skilling program, say in a small town in Jharkhand, right, for 6 weeks, and then say now they will get jobs in Bombay. It doesn't happen. The fundamental nature of skills is that a skill is acquired through repeated practice, usually on the job. So the model actually, according to me, has to be apprenticeship. That somebody embeds a skilling initiative inside a company. So in the morning for 3 hours you do classroom, 6 hours you work. And at the end of 11 months or 1 year, you acquired the skill and you got absorbed into employment. So I would recommend a national level apprenticeship program for skilling.
Okay, what's your view on the government jobs continuing to be the first preference of the aspirant? What is your view on that actually?
Look, that is a natural human tendency in India. There is a class of people, a certain type of person who will prefer a government job. They're looking for prestige, they're looking for security. And let's face it, the government does pay well, especially at the lower levels compared to private sector. So that will continue. And that's a natural human tendency in India. I don't see that changing.
From the data you possess, what are the sectors which are rebounding after the pandemic?
I think the rebound is fairly broad-based. It was led by IT and then by demand for IT professionals in non-IT companies. But now it's basically across industries, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's services, financial services, everywhere.
Can the brain drain concern be addressed by the Make in India or the Atmanirbhar initiatives? According to UN report, as you know, the highest number of migrants living abroad is from India. It's almost about 17.5 million. So how we are going to address this brain drain?
See, I don't think we should specifically try to address the brain drain. I think we were concerned about the brain drain in the 70s and 80s, but a lot of those people have come back and contributed to the country. So we should have an open door policy. Those who want to go may go. Those who want to come back may come back. Even those who go will ultimately contribute something. Now, and of course, you have to ensure that there's enough opportunity within India, that those who stay have enough opportunity.
Okay, can you say about the positive changes that COVID made in the job market scenario in India?
I think one big initiative of the government is Startup India. I think if you look at, so I entered the job market, I began to work in 1984. And between 84 and now, if I look at all the industries, sectors where investment has gone, where growth has happened, where employment has happened, these are all new sectors, new companies. The IT services industry barely existed. IT enabled did not exist. Mobile telephony did not exist. Internet did not exist. All these are new sectors, startups. So it's because of Startup India, I believe that many new companies will come up and they will create more jobs and they will do, so actually Startup India is an investment program, it's an entrepreneurship program, but it will also result in massive employment over the next 10 or 20 years.
Coming back to the rebound of the economy, what are the worrying spots for you?
Look, I worry about a few things, and these are largely external, geopolitical, whether it's oil prices, whether it's the war in Europe, whether it's the relationship with China, whether it is the supply chain bottlenecks because of China. Right? These are areas of concern, and we have to keep a close eye on them.
Okay. You talked about the IT sector. So what is the expected new wave in the IT sector, and how much jobs it may provide to India?
So look, this is an ongoing thing. I know I don't have a number that this will provide so many jobs in so many years, but we are seeing very rapid growth in IT, demand for IT professionals, whether to be placed in India or overseas. So right now the IT sector is however many people who are capable and qualified you can provide, we will hire them. So right now there is no letting up of demand.
Is there any particular reason for this rebound of IT sector or
I think
re-emergence of IT sector?
I think because of COVID.
Okay.
The world went digital. The moment the world went digital or began to go digital, there was massive demand for IT people.
But why India thrived?
Because we have so many engineers. We are the world's biggest supplier of engineers to the IT industry.
Is it also because CTC is less in India?
Well, yes, that is the case. It is more economical in India to get it done, but you know what? The salaries have caught up. Right now, given the demand, wage inflation is so high that in India, very often salaries are global levels.
Do you see any sign of economic rebound in the country, as you mentioned earlier about the war situation? How it is going to affect the job market in the country?
See, right now we are taking quarter on quarter. It's very hard to predict 1 year out, 2 years out, 3 years out because there's so much uncertainty in the environment. But right now, I think demand continues to be strong for people.
So how do you evaluate the graph of unemployment rate in the country? Because CMI came out with many figures. What are your figures on this?
So look, we are obviously looking at different sets of data from CMI. We look at, we've got 90,000 clients, companies, big, medium, small, all over India, across all sectors, all cities, all towns. And that data shows us that people are hiring, right? Now, CMI may have different data, which may show something else, but according to us, hiring there's a boom in hiring right now. So the youth, if they're qualified and talented, and they work hard, can expect a lot. But if the problem in India has always been you've got plenty of people, but not enough talent. So the real issue is talent, not people.
Are you suggesting any changes in the curriculum to mold a new generation for these emerging possibilities from the various companies and the job market?
Now, I think most private institutions are alive to changing curricula because they respond to the market. I think in the government institutions, there needs the changes have also begun to happen. So I think all in all good. I think you are seeing the central government, state governments, various state governments in conversation with education institutions on a regular basis to have change in curricula. For example, just this week, Niti Aayog has called a meeting to discuss changes in curricula to meet with the demand for IT professionals. So these are ongoing conversations. So I think there are experts looking at it.
In Kerala also there is a trend among the youth that to leave the country after your graduation and search a new opportunity in the Gulf countries or any other European countries, and they are not ready to work in India. That's a situation actually we are facing here in Kerala.
Well, I think that's fine as long as they get the jobs, because ultimately, if you look at, I think the 9 or 10 or 11 million people in the Middle East, many of them from Kerala, they send tens of billions of dollars back to India every year. And this is, good earning of foreign exchange for India. So I see nothing wrong in that, but there should be enough opportunities in India also, so that in case they want to stay back, they can stay back as well.
I think InfoEdge is also investing in startups. So what are the prospects of the startup industry in India? So why are you investing more in the startups now?
I think startups have a very good future in this country, huge potential, right? So all things are happening. We will see many of them become very big companies. Don't forget Infosys and HCL and Wipro were startups just 40 years ago. So the giants of tomorrow will be startups today, and which is why we invest behind them.
So will there be any change in the traditional industries in India? Because we know textiles was a traditional industry in India. So are we seeing much changes in such traditional industry?
I think application of IT, application of new technology, new materials, nanotechnology, all of that is impacting most industries, including textiles.
You are the founder of various digital companies in India. How you see the future of the digital companies after this COVID and after the 5G revolution, which is going to come by next year?
So, I think it's a very, very bright future, a huge opportunity, large market, new technology, penetration of, everybody's got so many hundreds of millions of smartphones out there growing fast. So I think it's fertile ground. I think the future is digital in India.
So why in India all these persons who are going to these sites, Swiggy, Zomato or Uber, are getting less salaries compared to countries like US?
Well, that is the case in all fields in India. There is demand and there is supply, and there are market forces. So ultimately companies have to survive and make a profit as well and be financially viable. So they can only afford X and not Y.
How will your generation that has successfully demonstrated creation and scale of businesses use your talent to bridge the gap between India and Bharat?
So we've actually, technology can be applied anywhere and everywhere, and there are enough startups that are emerging which are applying technology in villages in rural India, in the agri sector, which we have invested behind. For example, we invested behind a startup called Gramophone. Okay, Gramophone provides advice to farmers on crops, supplies them inputs. They've got an app, and it's working quite well, operating in Madhya Pradesh in rural areas. And we've invested behind them. We've invested behind a rural healthcare company called MedCords. We have invested behind a company called DigiVriddhi, which provides solutions for dairy farmers in areas of banking, collecting money, and so on. It's a fintech company. So I think there are enough entrepreneurs trying in rural areas, and many of them are investable, and people will invest behind them, and we have invested behind several of them.
So you can go to the rural areas and help them. That is what you're suggesting.
I think we are investing behind startups. The startups, so for example, Gramophone is based in Indore, and it works with farmers in Madhya Pradesh. MedCords is based in Kota. So typically a startup is based in a town, but it's areas of operation and maybe in villages.
So finally, if we talk about India, so how do you see the job prospects and also the prospects of economy in the next 5 or 10 years?
I think short term there could be volatility, but in the long run, 5 years, 10 years, I think India's got a very bright future, and so do Indians.
So thank you very much, Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, for speaking to us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we heard Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani speaking on the employment sector as well as the Agnivat scheme of the government. We will come back with another edition of Samvad. Till then, goodbye. Namaskar.